What's going on? We got college football this month. It's August. The next month we don't have college football is in March. We're here, fellas. We made it. Welcome back. Episode 2, First and 12 Ounces, 2026 season. You know all of us, but you might see a new face. And I'm not talking about the twinkle in Pete's eyes. Blake Ruffino, man, welcome in. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, man, let's get right into it. Obviously, you do Ruffino and Joe. You know, you want to go LSU or national first? Because I have an LSU question.
I'm a guest. Y'all tell me. I'm just here for a good time and hopefully free alcohol.
Tell us something that people don't expect about LSU. Like, what's something people are not expecting to see with this team?
I don't think people this is my overall assumption from an LSU point of view. I think people look at them in 3 different categories. I'm not going to go through all 3, but like the perception of Lane versus the reality of Lane. Like, for example, Lane's never had an offense below, like, out of the top 15. So I feel like people are like, oh, LSU's not going to be able to be that good on some certain situations. I'm like, okay, well, name a situation where he's not been out of the top 15. The last time was at Alabama the year that they would wind up getting to a national championship, but you have to actually dive into why they were 34th. They ran the ball ad nauseum, and they burned the clock on purpose. So I think when I look at, like, people nationally talking about LSU, Blake Baker had an offense last year that couldn't get past the 50, and I think defensively in some areas they got better. Prince Will, I think, is a big deal, which people don't really want to talk about. Jordan Ross is a big deal. So I think LSU as a staff, if you take the perception of the trolling out from Lane, how good of a coach and coaching staff does LSU have? So I think that is probably the biggest thing, Cheese, for me, that when people talk about LSU, they want to talk about the narratives surrounding them versus the reality of them. So, like, as an example, I think their offensive line this spring when we were out there, because, you know, Lane gave us access every day, I think their offensive line, their run game was pretty freaking good. And so I think that there's just perceptions about the team versus the reality of the team. And I'm starting to see, like, a lot of people, like, now that the season's here, oh, well, LSU might be pretty good. They got a lot. Yeah, no shit. You know, because when you bring in a lot of talent, you're going to be able to win a lot of games. So I think that is, for me, probably the thing that, like, hey, once you get past the BS, what's the reality of them on all 3 levels, offense, defense, and special teams?
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know if y'all have anything. I guess when you bring that up, the first thing that comes to my mind is who's the guy that nobody's talking about? And I'm not talking about Ty Benefield.
Not close. Dylan Jones, the running back. Not remotely close.
So you're in the camp of you think he's going to be not RB1. I know the current era of college football, they're basically bell cows don't really exist. But it's him and Harlan Berry, right? Caden Durham's down.
I mean, I don't know. We've had a spring, you know, but, like, going back to the offense, I mean, again, this goes back to a little bit of your perception versus reality. What is Lane? Okay. Well, they led the SEC in rushing the last 6 years. It wasn't Georgia. It wasn't Bama. I mean, I'll throw Texas in there because they had some good running games with Wisner, even though Georgia shut them down pretty much. I mean, they are the team that leads the country in rushing when it comes to overall outside of the service academies. So you have Navy, you have Army, you have Air Force, and then you had Ole Miss in the last 6 years. So what is Lane's perception? I think that people think that they're high flying, but they want to be physical. 4 yards to Lane in the run game is a massive win, like a massive win in the run game. So when Dylan Jones comes in, LSU just hasn't had – they recruited a lot of smaller backs, a lot of elusive backs, and then they wanted to go a power run game. Like they would run zone or they would run pounder or counter. Well, you don't do that with a guy who can't put his head down and get yards. So, Cheese, he came in here, meaning Jones, and put his head down and started murking dudes. And I think that was a big part of, like, people talk about the run game. They instantly say, well, the offensive line sucks. Okay, well, a lot of times in the run game, in my opinion, you got to put your head down and go get yards. You got to be a man. And so I think for him, like when we were at the second scrimmage during the spring, there were like 5 or 6 times where they're at the red zone and he's putting his head down against the number one defensive tackle in the country, getting in his chest and scoring a touchdown. And Lane's going berserk. So I think it's more about they want to be more physical than I think people want to give Lane credit for. They think it's a lot of finesse. And, you know, when we have a projector here in the studio where we watch like end zone copies of games. And I'm like, what perception did you see when they ran the ball 46 times versus Georgia in the regular season and scored 5 straight touchdowns and had 4 red zone touchdowns by running the football? Did you remotely think that they're a pass-happy team? Like, that is the biggest misconception of them. And then you go to the playoffs. Like, even with Charlie and Lane not being there, what part of the 40-plus carries and them getting 3 yards do we perceive that? So I think Jones is going to be a big part of that because of how physical they want to be. But I do think Harlan Berry's got a massive role. I think Stacey Gage is a name that somebody else needs to watch out for because he broke a lot of tackles. And look, it's just like, how many hidden yardage can you get? Now, Cheese, we're going to talk about this week now that, going into the first fall camp. Lane has brought up 32 times in 7 months. Can I get players that can find me hidden yardage? So Dylan Jones is that guy that's gotten him a lot of hidden yardage because 3rd and 4 is a lot different than 3rd and 1, especially in this league.
That fires me up, man. I mean, that just fires me up to hear. I mean, it's what I've been thinking, but like, it just fires me up to hear. You've seen practices, just to hear that. Like, I think all LSU fans are just tired of being soft. Like, tired of, like, you can't show up and hit people in the mouth. You always just kept getting hit in the mouth over and over. I'm excited for that not to be the case. I could talk about LSU today. These two guys might have some questions about their teams, obviously, Bama and Texas. So
absolutely.
Well, Blake, a follow-up to that kind of, with the overhaul in LSU, really all across the board, the offensive line you kind of hit on a little bit. What's your thoughts on Jordan Seaton initially and what you saw, I guess, in spring and what you expect from him? I mean, obviously a huge guy, huge name in college football. What's your thoughts?
Boy, what about a weight loss? I mean, what about toning up? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, the first day that I saw him, he was probably 360, and he's probably around 315 to 320, at 6'6". So I here again, I'm going to keep saying this. I don't care if LSU goes 8-4, if they go 11-1. It doesn't change my perception of what Lane has done. Okay, like their conditioning and strength and conditioning, especially because of tempo, Cole, I think is a big deal. I don't think you have a choice but to lose weight. Like Lane is very strict on like preparing your body. Like I'll give an example. I won't say the player, but there's a player along the defensive line. There was a player along the offensive line that I don't think was eating correctly or the way that Lane perceived that he should be eating. And let's just say that he ain't eating like that no more. Okay. And so I think it's a lot more about when you talk about Seaton. I thought he was really freaking good. I think Prince Will is a really good edge. I don't know if he's a first, second, third round pick, but he's going to get drafted. Like he could not play a snap this year. He's going to get drafted in the first 3 rounds just based off of what he did against Miami alone and going up against the right tackle that got drafted. When you take that and them going through battles, I think he gave up a sack, and so you got to realize we're there for probably 3,500 to 4,000 snaps. And so when he's giving up a sack, like I follow the offense a lot during spring and he gave up a sack. It's kind of like, damn, he kind of look, LSU fans will hate this. He's a much more prototypical left tackle than what Will Campbell was. I think he's much better in pass pro. I think he's got elite feet. I think he's got really bad hand placement. But I think that as a guy who played along the offensive line, that comes with development. That comes with, I don't think Colorado gave 2 flying Rudy Poos about real development. And so, like, you're taking a supreme athlete who probably, if he would have been in the Big Ten, okay, because he's from the Maryland area, or if he would have came down to the SEC, I think that would have been a little bit more of what we would have seen from him from the very beginning. Like, Cole, you're going to yell at me here. I thought the same thing for Bama's left tackle a year ago. I don't think Proctor is right now his body size as a tackle. I think he's a guard. But what would have happened if he would have trimmed down 40 pounds? Because we saw him running the freaking football. And so, like, as someone who's lost 150 pounds, like, you can't tell me that it like 50 pounds doesn't make a massive difference in the overall athleticism of you. So I think Seaton's done really well. I think this whole offensive line has done well. But again, I think Lane has done a good job of taking some Sabanisms around the lines of scrimmage. Yeah, and so that would probably is the benefit factor. You can't ignore the 40-pound weight loss. Like that's undeniable. Like, even if I never went out there and we're just having a conversation, you can't look at him and say, hey man, he lost weight. He puts the work in. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how he does. But he's really good in pass pro, very underrated in the run game.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much answered the question that I had for you, or one of the questions I had for you about the run game. It seems like that they shored up that offensive line, and this Jones kid is going to be an animal. So I'll move on to my next one I got for you. And this is an overall question for LSU's program as a whole.
Yep.
Can these new players and coaches mesh this fast? Because the season's right around the corner.
Yeah, that's a great question that nobody knows the answer to, right? Like, and I don't think we get that answer in week 1. I got to be completely blunt with you. I don't think we get that answer in week 3. And meaning Ole Miss. I think that when we talk about adversity of teams, like, let me give an example from last year. I don't think Ohio State saw adversity until the end of the season. So when they got punched in the mouth, they didn't really know how to react, right? And so you didn't really learn about teams until probably November. I don't think in a year 1 of any coach, I can make the argument for Cignetti. I can make the argument for Cignetti back-to-back years when, hey, you didn't really know how they were going to react to getting punched in the mouth until Penn State. You had no clue. They didn't play anybody. They didn't go up against anybody. And Penn State was 5-7. I don't really care. 7 people on that team got drafted. Like, they still had a lot of really freaking good athletes. So I don't think for me that I can look, or anybody, like, for example, I think it's a throwaway thought when people are like, man, this team's got to come together this quickly. Like, brother, it don't happen like that. It just doesn't happen, because you can't come through a bond together until you get punched in the mouth. It's like all 4 of us go to a bar and Cole says roll tide and an Auburn fan punches him in the nose. Well, we don't know how close we are to Cole and how good of friends we are with him until we go up there and uppercut somebody. Like, you don't know how anybody's going to react. You might think you're going to react like that, but you don't know how you're going to react like that. Now, Auburn fans, Cole's a good dude. Don't punch him in the face. But regardless, that's just how, that's how I think of it. I don't ever think that culture is built in a year. I don't think culture is built in 2 years, really, unless you have a Cignetti level situation. So I don't know. I think that, that is the ultimate question. All of that is BS until you get punched in the mouth in the season. So I don't really I don't really focus in on that. I think there are signs like Sam, this is going to be a story that comes out. I don't know when this is getting released, and it's already kind of trickled out a little bit. Sam Levitt spending a ridiculous amount of money to take his offensive lineman out, to take his receivers out, to go work out with Patrick Mahomes' team, getting timing down. I think that that's how you build a lot of chemistry. And in building that chemistry, again, that doesn't mean nothing until you get punched in the face. Like, I go back to 2011 LSU. What propelled them to going into Bama the first go around and winning? Well, they had a lot of players that got kicked off that team. They had a lot of players that, like, man, we have a lot of backups that got to be here. Well, they had already faced adversity and they hadn't played a game. I don't know of the adversity this team has faced yet to getting into that. So I think it's just, for me, I always base it off of, all right, I kind of like when my team gets punched in the mouth. I think you can even look at Bama last year. Everybody's going to clown on them from Florida State. Shit. Okay, you can clown them, but then they went on a run for quite a while and then made the playoffs. So it all just really depends on, to me, about adversity, a long-winded answer.
Yeah, I think what that makes me think of is a couple of years ago, I brought this up on a couple of stuff we've done, is when Georgia popped Oregon, and that Oregon team was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
right? Just watch week 1, you'd have been like, that team's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can tell a lot about teams in week 1 because you don't know what they're going to be in this new era until they get punched, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, and then that team was a game away from the playoffs and a 4-team playoff, but that Georgia team, was arguably one of the better defenses of all time. But you don't know. Like you can go back to Georgia when Bama punched them in the mouth the year before in the SEC title game, and then 45 days later, Georgia's punching them right back. And so again, did Kirby know about his dynasty run those 2 years until they lost? I mean, for crying out loud, he had a walk-on quarterback. He didn't know how Stetson Bennett was going to. I mean, you could make the argument that Stetson Bennett outperformed every draftable quarterback that entire time. C.J. Stroud.
Yep.
I mean, like Bryce Young. He outperformed all of them. I mean, like we did a thing on Ruffino and Joe. Name this quarterback. And everybody's like in the comments, oh, it's Bryce Young. Oh, it's C.J. Stroud. I forget all the quarterbacks in 21. And everybody's like, keep going down the list of these quarterbacks. It was Stetson frickin' Bennett. Like you never understood. Like I think Quinn Ewers was a part of that in the very beginning of it. You never really like go. I don't know if it was. I forget who. There was a big quarterback in the SEC that year. I'm forgetting. Regardless of that, it was Stetson Bennett that you're like, hey, he's completing 75% of his passes. He's averaging 330 yards per game in the air. He's averaging 65 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown. You would have thought that that's C.J. Stroud. It was Stetson frickin' Bennett. So that's the whole thing that I look at when Georgia, if Bama doesn't punch him in the mouth in that SEC title game, I don't know if they win an Natty because I felt like the team, whoever won that SEC title, was going to wind up winning the national title or losing the national title, excuse me. That it just goes to your point, Cheese, that like, look, man, you got to kind of get punched in the mouth. And until teams start doing that, the great ones find ways to win. That was Saban's superpower. Like everybody said, it's recruiting. No, his superpower was in getting in really tight games, really close games, and finding ways to win while still overcoming that adversity.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's all very good points. I agree with you 100%. Switching gears a little bit, we'll kind of do a little Bama, a little Texas.
Okay.
Obviously SEC Media Days. Kalen DeBoer took haymaker after haymaker. The pressure in Tuscaloosa is always going to be there, especially following Nick Saban. Just want to get your overall thoughts on Kalen DeBoer with kind of what he's done so far and the direction he's going. Because personally, I think he's getting a ton more criticism I think he deserves with what he's done in the 2 years he's been there. But I'd like to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Okay. SEC, if I would have told you in the first 2 years that Kalen DeBoer would have gone to a playoff in an SEC title game, what would your overall reaction be? Let's put it
I'd be happy.
Okay, then what's the difference?
Yeah, right.
I mean, now, I will say this. I do believe that there are things that he's figuring out about the SEC, regardless if you want to say the Big Ten is better than the SEC. I don't think they're better on the lines of scrimmage, not all around. Draft picks the last – like as an example, the SEC over the last 3 years still has 44 draftable players more than the Big Ten. So when you talk about the lower ends like Auburn had an elite defense last year. People don't want to talk about it. They don't want to mention it. They were elite defensively, okay? Outside of one game against Vanderbilt, look what they did against all these playoff teams. When you want to talk about A&M, Bama, whatever. I don't think on the offensive line of scrimmage right now he's figured it out because, like Cole, I remember everybody freaking out about Hollywood Smothers going there and then leaving and going to Texas. And I'm just like, okay, I understand that it's a bad perception, but let's get down to brass tacks. Hollywood Smothers can't block for himself. You weren't getting any push, and it goes to show how good Ty Simpson was. I just think they're figuring a lot of things out. And I think that Cignetti has killed college football on a lot of ways in reference to, guys, he just made it to an SEC title. I don't care that he got blown out. He just made it to a playoff. I don't care that Indiana blew him out. They got to continue to build. They still made the playoffs. So I think that there's a lot surrounding that. Now, what is interesting is that they're 42nd in the country ranked recruiting-wise on 24/7 Sports. That's interesting. That is, you got to have dudes. If Elijah Haven wasn't there, they'd be in the mid 60s. And so like that, Elijah Avon might not even play year one. He might not even play year two, depending on how the quarterback situation plays out. So I think he's taken some unfair criticism. However, I think Bama is going to have to figure out, or from an NIL perspective, are they going to back him or not? Because you don't really have a choice after you extended him. So either you're going to start paying that money or you're not. You know who would say the same exact thing? Brian Kelly. Now, the reason I bring up BK here is like everybody wants to point to BK and say it was his fault, his fault, his fault. It was. Where did they give him the money? I mean, BK had to give up $1 million of his own dollars just to bring in Mansour Delane. I mean, now that this is over, like that is a factual thing that happened. Well, Mansour Delane was a top corner, like taken in the draft. You're going to have to back him because you can't expect him to do elite things without elite talent. So that's my over. I think to the point as of right now, he's gotten way too much criticism. But he's going to have to start picking it up in some areas too.
Gotcha. I got one for you going on Texas's front. And all we hear about Texas is Arch and these new offensive weapons that he's got. And, them stirring up the offensive line. So it's actually not even going to be an offensive question. It's going to be, how big do you think Muschamp's impact is going to be on this defense?
I don't know. I think that is a very interesting question. He's got a lot of talent. He's got a good secondary. He's got a good front seven. They got a lot of depth. A lot of depth, and more than I think more people in the nation has defensively. Sark has done a very good job. Brandon Harris has done a very good job at building depth when in today's world you can't really build depth. They just keep rolling dudes out defensively. I think that the defensive struggles last year and will remain for them is if they can't, and I know you said this isn't offensively, but I'm sorry I have to go back to this. You control games and win games by running that rock. And I think defensively that they were fine last year. They were really freaking good last year. You're going to have games where you give up points. You're going to have games where dudes out-scheme you. Congratulations. It happens to everybody. But teams like Texas have to start controlling the clock and controlling things on the line of scrimmage on the opposite side of things. I think that their defense is so much better if you can control the clock and run the ball, which against Georgia, the last 3 years, I'm forgetting, against Ohio State, you name some of the bigger games that they've played in. Ohio State, they can't run the ball. Congratulations, you can run the ball versus Vandy. Congratulations, you can run the ball versus Mississippi State. Congratulations, you can run the ball versus Kentucky. That's not who you're measured up to. Right? Like you're not measured up to those programs. I think their defense has struggled a lot the last 2 years when they've struggled because you just can't move the ball on the ground. And if you can't, like Cheese was talking about with LSU, if you can't get a 3rd and 2 and the defense has to come back out there, like the SEC title game a couple years ago, what else do you want them to do? I mean, I don't know. Like, yes, they gave up points. Sure. They also had a lot of big stops for you. A lot of big stops that led to field goals, that led to punts, that led to a lot of situations. And when Texas just could not run the ball, they're back on the field. I think Colin Simmons is the best edge guy in the country. I've said that for multiple years now. They got a lot of talent. I think Will Muschamp is a very, very, very good coach. It's just I think their issues have mainly been offensively not being able to control the clock as much as they needed to. Like Ohio State, twice, you're down in the red zone, you got to score. I mean, like you got to score. That's predicated on the run game. What's the difference because if you remember that Ohio State game 2 years ago, they got 4 straight stops in the second half. 4 straight stops, and you couldn't get the ball past the 50-yard line. Who's that on? Like that ain't on nobody else but your offense. So I think they'll do good. I think they're still really good. It just really comes down to, can they control I know you're trying to ask defense, but I still got to go offense in the run game.
No, absolutely. And then one more before I pass it back to these guys.
Yep.
It's a question that we've debated quite often. It's the offensive questions about Texas. We brought it up, and it's Cam Coleman and Wingo. They're two great weapons together. I think people keep overlooking Wingo, and building up Cam. Which, I mean, hey, I know Cam played with a quarterback that doesn't really play quarterback well last year.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look statistically, Wingo outperformed him in a down year.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say that doesn't happen this coming year?
Yeah, but what is that underperformance? You know, like I'm still taking Sark over Hugh Freeze. You know, like
Yeah.
I mean, I was with you there for a minute. I get what you're saying. Cam Coleman, a dog. He a whole freak. Like, Wingo's the thing with Wingo for me is he had a lot of drops in a lot of big situations. A lot of drops. I think he was fourth in the SEC in drops. He's got to clean that up. He's a physical freak himself. Here's going to be the thing with Wingo. Like we talked about this, like when speaking of Texas, they took away Jeremiah Smith. Okay, a couple of years ago in the playoff. Well, it had to be who was it? It was pretty much Cornell Tate and some others that had to pick up the slack. Teams are going to double Cam Coleman. You're going to have to get here's my opinion going into week one. We'll do our Ohio State and Texas stuff in a couple of weeks on Ruffino and Joe. But here's my thing. I'm taking away Cam Coleman. I'm telling Ryan Wingo to beat me. Without a shadow of a doubt, you got to prove to me that you can do it. And that was the reason, like when Will Howard started going away 2 years ago from Jeremiah Smith and started going to everybody else, well, he started getting single covered. And Texas had a good game plan. We're going to take Jeremiah Smith away, beat us. And they should have for a lot of that. So good on them. I just think Cam Coleman is cut from that Jeremiah Smith cloth, man. I think he's that good. I mean, I'm sorry. I think Wingo's a good wide receiver. He ain't Cam, man. Like, I mean, this dude's out there with Rolex watches coming down with one-hand catches and spinning it on you. I don't know, man. Man, that dude's good. He's special. I mean, Auburn should have beaten Oklahoma a year ago, you know, mainly due to the fact that Cam Coleman went stupid. And he got, you know, he had dudes all over him, Pauls, but he was getting tackled before the ball even got there. They're not throwing the flag. I mean, this against first-round corners now, you know, like – this against second round corners, man. He's special. I get the whole wing, you know, everybody, you know, be careful with Wingo. Yeah, Cam a different dude now.
Yeah, man. So I know we're tight on time, so I got one more question.
Yeah.
What coach
We're going to watch Spider-Man. I'm taking my 7-year-old to go watch Spider-Man today. So that's the reason.
I watched it Friday. It was fantastic.
Okay, don't tell me anything, Buddha.
Yeah. But what coach is under the most pressure to win this year in the country, right? There's a lot of talk about guys. Like, I think the Lane stuff is ridiculous. I think the DeBoer stuff is kind of ridiculous. But I do think there's guys in that mix. So I'm curious who you have is they need to win.
So I have two, because there's two different categories when you ask a question like that. Number one, it's Shane Beamer, because if he doesn't win, he's going to get fired. Okay.
Yeah, well,
so that one, I got to be real with you. I think it's Sark. I think Sark has got to get over that hump. And what do I mean by the hump? I'm not saying win a national title game, okay? You got to get there, brother. You're the most talented team in the country by far, maybe you and Oregon. Like you have probably 7 guys on your defense that aren't going to start that were top 50 recruits. Like Cade Phillips might not play. I mean, he might start. He might play a good bit. Brother, if that dude doesn't, that dude could start on every other SEC team in the country or in the conference. He could start for any other team in the country. That's how good he is. He might rotate. So to your point, I think that Sark is in a point where, look, everybody talks about LSU. You brought up LSU as an example. LSU has still not spent more money than Ohio State this year, nor Texas. Texas is going to be closer to $55 million when it's all said and done. I know CBS is doing a thing on them. They didn't spend more money than Texas Tech. They are going to spend more money than anybody. You better win. I mean, I'm sorry, you better win. And I love the fact that Sark came out to SEC Media Days and said, you know, you remember the Walter White, you got me, guilty. You know, like when Hank was about to bust him and he, WW, who do you think that is? Sark went up to SEC Media Days like, look, man, we're talented. I know we got to win. Like the expectations are fair. I'm going into, what was it? I think it's year 5, year 6, whatever one it is. He's got to be there because, look, you can't have you can't have that much level of talent in the portal and in high school. People forget now they were the number one team in the high school ranks 2 years ago on 24/7. Well, some of those guys are going to be playing. They're going to be playing now. I think it start from that level because I can't think of any other coach. Like I'm trying to think. It's not Ryan Day, maybe Lincoln, but I think Lincoln's kind of built some equity there because of the number one overall class. I think it's got to be him because there's just – and you missed the playoffs last year. I think it's got to be him and everybody. I do think Arch puts a lot of pressure on that too. If Bell were starting, I don't know how much pressure he would have there. And you got Arch freaking Manning, right? And so I think it's him. On the other side, I think it's Beamer. If Beamer doesn't win 7 games, he going to get fired.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I know you got to roll. Go watch the movie.
Yes,
Appreciate
Spider-Man, man.
Awesome.
We need to come back after the movie and break down Spider-Man. What y'all think about that? I think
dude, I had a blast when I watched it. It's great.
Yeah,
you're gonna love it.
I hope it is. Well, I appreciate y'all having me, man. It's gonna be a fun season. Monday around the country really starts football, so it's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I think this is gonna be one of the most. I mean, because I don't think that there's a favorite really. I think a lot of people are saying there are favorites. I don't know. I mean, people aren't talking about Oregon. I know that I'm sure y'all talk a lot of SEC, but all right, okay, man. Like they returned everybody, everybody, and then they got better, and I'm just like Jesus Christ, So we'll see. It's gonna be a fun season.
Yeah, well, appreciate you again. Make sure y'all like the podcast, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Go follow Blake, AYS, Ruffino, and Joe. But that's all we got, I think.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got for y'all. Have a good one as always.
All I'm saying, Cole, all I'm saying to the Texas fans over here, November's our time, baby.
We'll see. We'll see.
Keep our stadium clean, bub.
Call me Bub. All right, we'll see you on the ground.